Get your hands off me! Danielle Carter's voice sliced through the hum of the grocery store like a blade, sharp and unyielding, as two burly police officers twisted her arms behind her back amid the colorful chaos of the produce aisle. Shoppers froze mid-reach for apples and bananas, their baskets dangling forgotten in their hands, eyes wide with the electric shock of sudden injustice. The air thickened with the scent of fresh citrus and disbelief, phones whipping out from pockets to capture the unfolding drama. At the edge of the scene stood the store manager, Mr. Harold Halpern, his arms crossed over his rumpled polo shirt, a smug curl to his thin lips as he nodded approvingly. "She tried to steal groceries," he'd told the officers moments ago, his voice dripping with certainty, as if he'd caught her red-handed stuffing kiwis into her purse. The first officer, a stocky man named Ramirez with a mustache that twitched like it had a mind of its own, tightened his grip on her wrist, ignoring the way Danielle's calm protests cut through his bravado. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for shoplifting." Save the attitude for the judge. His partner, Officer Klein, younger and eager to prove himself, leaned in close, his breath hot against her ear. "People like you always have an excuse, don't you? Just makes it worse." The words hung heavy, laced with that subtle venom Danielle had heard too many times before. Not fear in her dark eyes, but a quiet authority that flickered like a storm about to break. She opened her mouth to respond, her voice steady despite the pressure on her shoulders. But Klein snapped the cuffs around her wrists with a metallic click that echoed off the fluorescent-lit shelves. "Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe for more stories of truth and justice, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?" Customers murmured, a ripple of unease spreading through the crowd like a wave. An elderly woman clutched her cart, whispering to her husband, "This ain't right. She wasn't even near the registers?" A teenage boy, phone held high, zoomed in on Danielle's face, capturing the resolve etched there. Softly, almost too low for the recording to pick up clearly, she turned her head just enough to meet the boy's gaze. "You're making a very big mistake," she said. Her tone not a threat, but a simple statement of fact, carrying the weight of inevitability. Ramirez and Klein exchanged a glance, a mocking chuckle bubbling from Klein's throat. "Oh, yeah? Tell it to the judge, sweetheart." They yanked her forward, her purse swinging awkwardly from her shoulder, the contents jostling with each step. Halpern watched from his vantage point, arms still folded, his satisfaction as palpable as the chill from the nearby dairy coolers. Unbeknownst to them, in that frozen heartbeat, Danielle's determined eyes held the promise of a reckoning, pulling the scene back through the threads of time to the quiet morning that had led her here. The sun filtered through the blinds of Danielle Carter's modest apartment in Washington, D.C. casting golden stripes across the polished oak desk where she sat, her sharp navy suit tailored to perfection, hugging her athletic frame like a second skin. At 34, Danielle moved through her world with the precision of a surgeon, calm, focused, commanding, her locks pulled back into a neat bun that spoke of discipline earned the hard way. Spread before her was a thick case file, its pages marked with red tabs, Operation Clean Sweep, an ongoing FBI investigation into corruption festering within local law enforcement, whispers of bribes, planted evidence, and a toxic undercurrent of racial bias that poisoned entire communities. As the Bureau's lead field officer, Danielle wasn't just chasing leads. She was dismantling the shadows, one thread at a time. Her phone buzzed softly on the desk, and she glanced at the screen, her younger brother, Marcus, calling from their family home in Atlanta. A small smile softened her features as she answered, leaning back in her chair. "Hey, little bro, what's got you up so early?" Her voice was warm, the kind that wrapped around you like a favorite blanket. Even as her free hand flipped through a photo of a nondescript grocery chain, its facade hiding alleged collusion with overzealous cops. Marcus's laugh crackled through the line, light but edged with the worry only siblings could carry. "Just checking in, D. You know Mom's been pacing holes in the carpet since you took that undercover gig. Says you're out there playing hero without a cape." Danielle chuckled, her eyes scanning a report on discriminatory stops at retail spots. Tell her justice isn't loud, Marcus. It's consistent. One quiet step at a time, and the whole house of cards comes down. There was a pause, the kind filled with unspoken pride, and Marcus sighed. You sound like Dad, just be safe, okay? World's not always kind to folks who look like us carrying that weight. She closed the file with a decisive snap, her reflection in the window showing a woman whose integrity wasn't worn like armor, but woven into her very breath. I always am. Love you. Talk soon. Rising smoothly, Danielle crossed to her closet, shedding the suit for a plain gray hoodie and jeans. Unassuming, invisible, the perfect camouflage for today's routine errand. She was heading to one of the chain's DC outposts, not to make a scene, but to observe, to blend into the aisles, note the glances, the hesitations, the subtle ways bias bloomed unchecked. Her FBI badge, gold and gleaming with authority, slipped into the side pocket of her purse, alongside her ID and a notebook for discreet jottings. Justice, she'd always believed, started in the mundane, in the overlooked moments where power showed its true face. With a final glance in the mirror, she grabbed her keys and stepped out into the crisp autumn air, the city's pulse thrumming around her like a distant drumbeat. Little did she know, as her sneakers hit the pavement toward the metro, that today she would become the very story she sought to expose, her errand transforming into a mirror held up to the fractures in the system she fought to mend. Danielle pushed through the automatic doors of the grocery store, the whoosh of cool air greeting her like an indifferent sigh, carrying the mingled aromas of baked bread and cleaning solution. It was mid-morning on a Tuesday, the aisles sparsely populated with retirees comparing cereal boxes and a few harried parents corralling toddlers. She'd chosen this location deliberately. Its reputation for routine calls to police on black and brown shoppers had flagged it in the investigation files, a pattern too consistent to ignore. Today, though, was simple. Snacks for the evening stakeout, nothing more. Granola bars, water, maybe some trail mix to fuel the long hours watching a suspected dirty cops routine. Her purse slung over one shoulder, she navigated toward the checkout lanes, pausing in the chip aisle to scan prices on her phone, an old habit from leaner days, maximizing every dollar. From his perch behind the customer service desk, Mr. Harold Halpern watched her like a hawk eyeing a field mouse. At 52, Halpern was the kind of man who wore his authority like a too-tight tie, choking off anything that didn't fit his narrow view of the world. His paunch strained against his company-issued vest, and his thinning hair was combed over with the desperation of someone clinging to relevance. He'd built his career on keeping things orderly, which in his mind meant profiling anyone who didn't match the store's unspoken demographic. White, middle class, predictable. Danielle's poised stride, the way she pulled out her phone without a flicker of guilt, set his instincts buzzing. Shady, he muttered to himself, eyes narrowing as she compared a bag of almonds to the app on her screen. He'd seen her type before, or so he told himself, the phrase a crutch for his unease, rooted in boardroom whispers and water-cooler gripes about those people causing trouble. Leaning toward the intercom, Halpern kept his voice low, summoning security with a code that bypassed the pleasantries. Yeah, I got a situation in snacks. Young black woman, acting suspicious. On her phone, lingering too long. Keep an eye. The words slithered out, casual as ordering coffee, but laced with the prejudice that had earned his store a file in Danielle's briefcase. A young cashier, Maria, overheard from her register, her brown cheeks flushing as she rang up a loaf of bread for an oblivious customer. Mr. Halpern, she's just shopping. Didn't do anything. Her voice trailed off, soft and uncertain, the plea of someone who'd learned to pick battles she could win. Halpern waved her off with a fleshy hand, his smile thin as a razor. Mind your lane, Maria. I know trouble when I see it. Better safe than sorry. She bit her lip, glancing at Danielle's back, elegant even in the hoodie, moving with purpose, and turned away, the weight of silence settling like dust. Security arrived moments later, Two burly men in polos who flanked the aisle without a word, their presence a subtle cage closing in. Halpern wasn't done. From his desk, he dialed the non-emergency police line, his free hand drumming on the counter. "Yes, this is Manager Halpern at Eastside Groceries. Got a shoplifter in progress. African-American female, mid-30s, trying to sneak items. Yeah, send someone quick. We don't tolerate this." The dispatcher's voice crackled assurances, and Halpern hung up, leaning back with a self-satisfied exhale. Outside, the sky hung heavy with clouds, but inside, the tension coiled tighter, an invisible thread pulling toward confrontation. Employees darted glances, the store's bias not a shout but a whisper, eroding trust one sidelong look at a time. Danielle, oblivious for now, selected her items, a modest handful, and headed toward the registers, her phone slipping back into her purse. The trap was set, spring-loaded with assumptions, waiting only for the spark. Flashing lights pierced the store's plate glass windows like accusatory fingers. The wail of sirens cutting short as two patrol cars screeched to a halt in the parking lot. Officer Ramirez stepped out first, his boots crunching gravel with purposeful authority. Radio clipped to his belt, crackling updates he barely acknowledged. Beside him, Klein adjusted his cap, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Another call from Halpern, the manager who never cried wolf, or so the logs said. They'd responded to his store a dozen times this year alone, each incident neatly filed away without much fuss. Today's dispatch painted a clear picture: shoplifter, evasive, the usual. No questions needed. Action first, details later. Pushing through the doors, the bell jingled innocently above them, a stark contrast to the storm they carried. Danielle stood at the self-checkout, scanning her granola bars with deliberate care, when Halpern materialized at her side like a shadow given form. "Ma'am, we need to step into the office, now." His tone brooked no argument, eyes flicking to the approaching uniforms. She paused, beeping the last item, her card hovering over the reader. "I'm paying for everything here. What's the issue?" But Halpern's hand shot out, not touching her, but gesturing sharply toward the back. "Security says you were pocketing stuff. Don't make this harder." The lie landed flat, but before she could counter, Ramirez and Klein closed in, their shadows engulfing her. "Hands where we can see 'em," Ramirez barked, his voice amplified by the store's acoustics, drawing heads like magnets. Shoppers slowed, forming a loose semicircle, whispers buzzing like static. Danielle raised her palms slowly, her expression a mask of composed neutrality, the kind honed in interrogation rooms and stakeout vans. "Officers, my name's Danielle. I'm just buying snacks. There's been a misunderstanding." Klein snorted, circling to her left, his hand resting on his holster. Not drawing, but the threat implicit. "Misunderstanding? Manager says you're lifting goods. Bag on the counter, now." She complied without flourish, sliding her purse forward, the zipper parting like a reluctant confession. Inside, wallet, keys, phone, the innocuous tools of any errand. But Ramirez's eyes narrowed at the faint glint from the side pocket, ignoring it for now as he rifled through. "See, clean," she said evenly, meeting his gaze. "Can we sort this out like adults?" Halpern hovered, injecting. "I saw her on her phone, planning it." "Trust me, officers, she's good at this." The crowd thickened, a young mother shielding her child's eyes, an older man shaking his head. "This is ridiculous," someone muttered, phone screens glowing with recordings. Klein's sneer deepened. Leaning in so close, Danielle could smell his coffee breath. "We'll see how polite you are down at the station, Missy. Turn around." His hands clamped on her shoulders, guiding, more like shoving her toward the exit, Ramirez trailing with her purse in tow. The air hummed with injustice, thick as humidity before a downpour, every step amplifying the officer's arrogance against her restraint. She didn't struggle, didn't raise her voice. Instead, she cataloged it all, the sneers, the assumptions, the ease with which power bent toward prejudice. As they maneuvered her through the sliding doors into the harsh afternoon light, the parking lot stretching empty and accusatory, Klein's boot caught the purse strap, sending it tumbling. It hit the asphalt with a thud, spilling contents in a haphazard arc. Lipstick, a notebook, and then the metallic gleam they couldn't ignore. Officer Klein bent down first, his fingers brushing aside the notebook to retrieve the fallen item, a leather wallet that unfolded like fate's own joke. He flipped it open, expecting perhaps a driver's license or a credit card, but what stared back was gold-embossed leather, the eagle emblem unmistakable. Ramirez, hauling Danielle toward the squad car, glanced over at his partner's sudden stillness. "What's the holdup? Cuff her and let's roll." But Klein's face had drained of color. The smirk evaporated, leaving only the pallor of dawning horror. Inside the wallet lay the FBI badge, crisp and official, flanked by an identification card bearing her photo, poised, professional, and the bold letters, Agent Danielle Carter, Lead Field Officer, Federal Bureau of Investigation. The credentials didn't just gleam, they burned, searing through the moment like sunlight through fog. Danielle stood tall, wrists still bound but her posture unbowed, as Klein's hand trembled slightly, passing the badge to Ramirez. "You might want to read the name on that before you go any further," she said, her voice level, threaded with that quiet authority that now felt like thunder wrapped in silk. Ramirez snatched it, his eyes scanning the text, the photo matching the woman before him down to the determined set of her jaw. "Agent Danielle Carter?" The words escaped him in a rasp, the parking lot falling into a hush broken only by the distant hum of traffic. Halpern, trailing behind like a deflated balloon, sputtered from the doorway, his face twisting in denial. "That's fake! She planted it, some scam, officers, you know how they—" But his bluster faltered as witnesses pressed closer, phones capturing every quiver, every bead of sweat on his brow. The calm in Danielle's tone rippled outward, shaking the foundations of their confidence like an aftershock. Klein stepped back, hands half raised in instinctive surrender, his earlier sneer now a ghost of embarrassment. "Ma'am, Agent, this is—" "We didn't know." Ramirez, still clutching the badge, met her eyes for the first time without the filter of bias, seeing not a suspect, but a force. The crowd gasped in unison, a collective exhale of vindication, murmurs swelling into a low roar. "Did you hear that, FBI? She told them it was a mistake!" Danielle simply nodded, her expression softening not into triumph, but measured resolve. "Uncuff me, officer, and call your sergeant. This ends now." The metallic snick of the cuffs releasing echoed louder than the sirens had, freedom returning not with fanfare but with the weight of what came next. Halpern retreated into the store, his empire of assumptions crumbling under the glare of truth, as Danielle rubbed her wrists, her gaze steady. "You just interfered with a federal investigation," she said, the words not a shout but a declaration that hung in the air, promising ripples far beyond this asphalt stage. The growl of engines cut through the tension like a lifeline. 3 sleek black SUVs barreling into the lot with the precision of a coordinated strike, tires crunching to a halt in a tight formation that blocked the patrol cars. Doors flew open, and out stepped a team of FBI agents, dark suits, earpieces, credentials flashing like badges of unassailable truth, moving with the fluid efficiency of a unit that had drilled for moments just like this. The store's automatic doors hissed shut behind the last straggler, but inside, the silence was absolute, employees peering from behind registers as if the world had tilted on its axis. Leading the arrivals was Agent Marcus Brooks, Danielle's commanding officer, a towering figure in his mid-40s with salt and pepper hair and eyes that missed nothing. He strode directly to her, his face a mask of controlled fury softened only by the nod of recognition he gave her. "Agent Carter, status?" She straightened her hoodie, the casual fabric now a stark contrast to the authority radiating from her team. "All good, Brooks. Just a little field test gone sideways." Brooks turned to Ramirez and Klein, who stood rooted like statues caught in a floodlight, their badges suddenly feeling like lead weights. "Who authorized this arrest?" His voice was gravel over steel, demanding without volume, the kind that brooked no evasion. Klein stammered. "Dispatch. Manager Halpern called it in as shoplifting, sir. We verified on scene." Ramirez nodded mutely, eyes darting to the badge still clutched in his fist, which he handed back to Danielle with the deference of a penitent. Halpern emerged then, emboldened by proximity to uniforms, but his bluster wilted under Brooks's glare. It was legitimate. She was suspicious on her phone, loitering. One of the agents, a sharp-eyed tech specialist named Rivera, was already inside, commandeering the security office, pulling up footage on a laptop with swift keystrokes. The grainy video played on a nearby monitor, clear as accusation. Danielle entering innocently, selecting items, scanning at checkout, no sleight of hand, no theft. Just Halpern's watchful eyes and hurried call. Customers, emboldened by the shift, stepped forward like witnesses in a courtroom reborn. The teenage boy from earlier thrust his phone forward. I got it all. She didn't take nothing. He just assumed. The elderly woman nodded vigorously. Called the cops on a paying customer. Shameful. Rivera documented it all, her tablet capturing statements, timestamps, the raw edges of truth unfolding in real time. Brooks circled Halpern, who shrank back against a display of canned soups. False report? Interference with a federal officer. That's a stack of charges, Mr. Halpern. Care to explain your suspicion? The manager's mouth opened and closed, fish-like, as the weight of his prejudice crystallized into peril. Danielle, for her part, didn't gloat. She stood apart, composing a quick report on her phone, her composure a beacon amid the chaos. Softly to Halpern, as agents escorted him aside for formal questioning, she said, "You see, justice doesn't need to raise its voice. It just shows up." The words landed like seeds in fallow ground, the store falling into a reverent quiet as the FBI team methodically dismantled the morning's farce. Ramirez and Klein, pale and trembling, offered shaky apologies. "We're sorry, Agent. Procedure. We messed up." But the damage echoed, a fracture in their armor that no words could mend. Danielle met their eyes with quiet disappointment. The real consequence brewing not in anger, but in the accountability that justice demanded, a tide rising slow but inexorable. Days blurred into a whirlwind of headlines and hearings. The viral video of Danielle's arrest exploding across social media like a flare in the night, millions of views. Shares rippling from DC living rooms to global feeds. Captions blazing with praise for her unshakable dignity. FBI agent framed in grocery store bust. Composure wins the day, screamed one outlet. Racial profiling backfires, cop's worst nightmare, crowed another. The story wasn't just news, it was a mirror, reflecting the raw underbelly of bias back at a nation weary of its persistence. In the fluorescent hum of the internal review boardroom, a stark chamber in the city's Justice Center, the two officers sat ramrod straight in ill-fitting suits, sweat beading on their brows under the scrutiny of panelists, seasoned administrators, civil rights advocates, and a federal liaison who'd flown in from Quantico. Danielle, called as the primary witness, entered without fanfare, her suit pressed, locks framing a face serene as a still lake. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady as she took the stand, hands folded lightly on the rail, "I'm not here to condemn. I'm here because the system isn't broken. It's built by people. And people can change." The officers shifted uncomfortably, Ramirez's mustache drooping as he avoided her gaze, Klein's fingers twisting a pen into knots. The board chair, a no-nonsense woman with silver streaks in her hair, leaned forward. "Agent Carter, describe the incident from your perspective." Danielle recounted it methodically. The entry, the scrutiny, the cuffs, painting not with vitriol, but precision, letting facts carve the wounds. When she reached the badge reveal, a murmur swept the room, the viral clip playing on a screen behind her, freezing the panel on that moment of reversal. Their actions, she continued, eyes sweeping the officers, weren't malice alone. They were habit. The kind that starts with a glance and ends in handcuffs. But habits break with awareness. Under oath, Ramirez spoke first, his voice cracking like dry earth. "We let bias cloud judgment. Halpern's call, the description. It fit a pattern we shouldn't have assumed." Klein nodded, swallowing hard. Saw the phone, thought evasion. "Didn't ask. Won't happen again, ma'am. Agent." The admissions hung heavy. turning humiliation into a raw, teachable pivot. Questions flew, protocols ignored, training gaps exposed, the collusion with Halpern's store laid bare like a dissected lie. Danielle's grace under the lights transformed the hearing from spectacle to sermon, her restraint a masterclass in the power of poise. As the board deliberated, suspensions pending, retraining mandatory, charges for Halpern looming in a parallel civil suit, she stepped down, pausing only to offer the officers a nod. Change starts today. Make it count. Outside, reporters clamored, but Danielle slipped away, the weight of vindication light as air, her thoughts already turning to the deeper currents stirred by the storm. The channel's voice lingered in the ether, teasing the horizon. What Danielle did next shocked even her superiors. 1 year later, the autumn leaves swirled in lazy eddies across the East Side Groceries parking lot. The same asphalt now repaved and lined with fresh signage proclaiming "Welcome all, equity in every aisle." Danielle stepped from her unmarked sedan. No hoodie this time, but a simple trench coat over jeans, her stride as purposeful as ever. The store had undergone a metamorphosis under new management. A diverse team hand-picked after the scandal, diversity training woven into every shift, sensitivity programs that turned whispers of bias into open dialogues. Cameras still watched the entrances, but now they guarded dignity, not suspicion. She pushed through the doors, the bell chiming a softer welcome, and navigated the familiar aisles, selecting the same modest haul, granola bars, water, a bag of almonds as a nod to continuity. At the community center across the street, visible through the windows, Harold Halpern raked leaves in his court-mandated service hours. His once smug frame hunched, polo swapped for a fluorescent vest. The fall from grace had been thorough, fired, sued, now rebuilding through sweat and reflection. Spotting her through the glass, he paused, rake in hand, then crossed the lot with hesitant steps, removing his cap as he approached the store's vestibule. "Agent Carter," he said, voice roughened by time and regret, eyes downcast. "Didn't expect to see you here." She turned from the register, paying with exact change, and met his gaze without flinching. "Just picking up supplies, Mr. Halpern. How's the work treating you?" He swallowed, the words tumbling out like long-held breath. "Humbling. Made me see what I did to you to others. I'm sorry, truly." Danielle nodded, her expression kind but firm. The bridge of forgiveness extended without erasure. Apology accepted. Use it to build something better. For them, not just you. As she exited, bag in hand, the scene unfolded in a quiet montage. Halpern returning to his rake, shoulders squaring with newfound purpose. Inside, Maria the cashier, now promoted to assistant manager, greeting a family of color with genuine warmth. Danielle sliding into her car, phone buzzing with a message from Marcus. "Proud of you, sis. Changing the world, one store at a time." Her voiceover wove through it all, soft and resonant, carrying the story to its hopeful close. When we teach respect, we change more than one life. We change the standard. It's not about the badge or the title. It's about seeing the humanity in every face, every errand, every glance. True authority isn't shown through power. It's proven through restraint, integrity, and respect for human dignity. Fade out with the rustle of leaves and a swell of uplifting strings, the screen lingering on the store's inclusive sign as the light fades. For more stories of truth, justice, and redemption, make sure you're subscribed. See you in the next one.